Your Saturnalia! It's a holiday season right now for many around the globe, with December seeing celebrations of Hanukkah, Christmas, the Gaian New Year, and the winter solstice, to name just a few. But before the Maccabees retook Jerusalem and there was a Christ to hold mass for, the Romans were already at it with festivities of their own. And yes, like so many other things they did, it has its roots in the Greek Chronia festival, which honestly probably had its roots in something even earlier than that. But the Roman Saturnalia was in December, and its popularity, longevity and legacy has made it a December festival favourite. As of the time of recording this video, it's the 17th of December, the 16th day before the calends of January, so again, Io Saturnalia vobis somnis clamo, Io Saturnalia to you all, a typical Saturnalian greeting, initiating the first day of the Saturnalian festivities. These would continue in ancient Rome until the 23rd of December, the 10th day before the calends of January, a week marked by many particular traits, but mainly drinking, partying, gift-giving, the occasional religious ritual, and in some cases the fascinating swap between master and slave. So let's get Saturnalian and see what all the fuss is about. We can start with the name. Why Saturnalia? Your best guess is probably the right one. It is named for Saturn himself, the Titan father of Jupiter. Our memory of Saturn today is pretty marred, I'd say, by that one painting by Francisco de Goya, but the Romans didn't remember him as all that bad. Yes, he ate his children, but his rule over the cosmos and the world was actually pretty cozy. Here's Ovid to tell us all about it. Aurea prima sata est Titas, quae vindicae nullo sponte suas sine lege fidem rectumque colebat, poena metusque aberrant, nec verba minantia fixo aere legebantur, nec suplex turbat imebat judicis ora sui, sed errant sine vindice tutti. First was born the Golden Age, free from punishment, divinely ordained, no law needed to keep goodness and trust. No punishment, no fear, no carved out words from heaven to command, no panicked pleas were made in fear of judges' verdicts, but all lived without them in peace. This was the rule of Saturn, the age of Titans, and to Greeks and Romans alike, from at least the works of Hesiod, the Golden Age. But postquam Saturno tenebrosa in tartara miso, sub Iove mundus erat, subiet argentia proles, auro deterior, fulvo pretiosor aere. After that, when Saturn was sent down to murky Tartarus, the world was under Jupiter, a silver age, lesser than gold, yet better than bronze. In the Golden Age, the ground would magically bear food for the people of Earth, peace was ever present, and all-round paradise. But Saturn himself, as we know from the myths, did indeed get a bit too big for his boots, and just as he overthrew Catullus, or Uranos, so Jupiter overthrew him, and in so doing, probably upset the harmony on Earth. So over time, the Roman leaders began to institute certain practices at certain times of the year to bring this paradise back, even if just for a time. Now let's get to what actually happened during these times. Saturnalia. My favourite writer of antiquity, Lucian of Samosata, tells us all straight from the Titan himself, Saturn. I mean, he probably didn't actually know Saturn, but it sounds exactly like something he'd say. Maybe. A priest makes a bunch of wishes in this work for Saturn to fulfill during the Saturnalia, much like people would ask Santa of at Christmas. But his requests are too material: gold, land, clothes, jewels, etc. And Saturn has to tell him that only Jupiter can provide that sort of thing now. His reign over Earth is now limited to just 7 days a year. So he tells the priest what really happens in his week-long reign.
In my 7 days I commit no seriousness and no business. Hini kai met hui kai voan kai haisi kai velfi. But drinking and getting drunk, celebrating and playing games, gambling, kai ahvandas, katistana, kai tus oiketas ja ruohimo, kai uunonaltina, kai korotimo, potremota. The appointment of kings and the feasting of slaves, singing naked and clapping hands. Eniotere kai hyto suprolipike valene Исai as voloki krisnenon kai proskopon. Sometimes getting your face dunked into cold water. Haftai hitai pui. This is the stuff I've heard about.
Weird, huh? But there's a bit to break down here, so let's have a closer look. We know the Romans loved a bit to drink, and what better way to replicate a bygone golden age than getting sloshed for a week straight. Statius even called it multo gravidus mero december, utterly wine-soaked December. Catullus called this week optimus dierem, the very best of days. People would exchange gifts, examples of which Martial variously describes: baskets, ornate napkins, silver spoons, gaudy togas, clothing dyes, and Noctes, or nuts. That's right, and nuts play a special role in Roman Saturnalia. Not in the way you're thinking, stop watching so much HBO. The nux, nut, was a substitute for money when gambling in this week. Everyone did it, and I hope at some point to do a little bit more research and get a video out on games in the ancient world to go with my previous one on sports. Although gambling wasn't really part of the ideal Romans' virtutas or even Romanitas in the ancient world, it was obviously still a fairly common vice, but during Saturnalia it was not only even more widespread, but completely permitted. Augustus was a notorious gambler, but when Suetonius described it, he says, Aliae rumorem nullo expavit, lucitque simplicite et pallam oblectamenti causa etiam senex ac praeterquam decembri mense alies. He wasn't ashamed at all of his reputation for dice games, and it was well known he played openly for fun, even as an old man, and not only in December but other months too. Even slaves gambled this week, and that's where we get to the most interesting part of Saturn's speech. The appointment of kings and the feasting of slaves. What did Saturn mean by this? One of the most iconic aspects of Saturnalia was the universality of liberty, even if just for a single week. In his Satires, Horace speaks as master to one of his slaves, Aulus, and tells him, Age libertarte decembri quando ita maiores voluerunt utere narra. Use the December freedom as our ancestors would wish it. Go on. Speak truth. Slaves in this period could typically enjoy the luxury of free citizens, which often took the form of a feast, as Saturn said, or the ability to speak to their masters as equals, as Horace records. This practice was said to date back to the time of the second Roman king Numa, hosce caetus homologemenus dullus ecefseti mes eleutheras, en tois chroniois hestiasthae metathon despoton anamegmigmenus ethisas, since he granted slaves a taste of the honour of freedom, letting them dine with their masters during Saturnalia. Again, this is because during the Saturnian Golden Age there were no slaves or masters, and the land treated all equally. Seneca says the Roman ancestors instituerunt diem festum, non quo solum cum servis domini vescerentur, sed quo utique. They instituted a festival, not the only one where slaves dined with their masters, but certainly notable at this one. The pileus, too, a felt hat worn by freed slaves and a word sometimes used synonymously with freedom, was customarily worn by Roman citizens over the week. And Cassius' diary even says that slaves got to wear their masters' clothes. As for the appointment of kings part of the speech, this was a later addition to the festival. Technically speaking, the king was in fact a princeps, like Augustus, who was selected at random to be temporary ruler at a given party. Their commands needed to be obeyed by all present, just like a game of truth or dare today, but less truth and more dare. As for when it all started, there were certainly elements of it since the early kingdom, even if not formally the December Saturnalia. Livy says the Temple of Saturn was built and Saturnalia first commissioned under the consulship of Titus Latius, a favourite of mine, and Quintus Cloelius, making the first year of the Saturnalia 497 BCE. Livy goes on to say that it evolved in 217 BCE during the Second Punic War against Hannibal of Carthage. It was a tumultuous year for Rome and many sacrifices were made to the gods. In December, the priests decreed that sacrifices be made at the temple of Saturn as a lectisternium, with the images of the gods laid out as if on a couch, and all Rome would enjoy a public banquet. As of this December, the senators entrenched the custom of public feasting and drinking during Saturnalia. The final day was actually added under Caligula, who we're told didn't want it to end at 6, and added the Juvenalis to make it a week-long festival. These festivities would be enjoyed throughout the empire, no matter where. Cicero wrote to Atticus that even when he was on campaign in December, hilara sane Saturnalia militibus, he enjoyed a cheerful Saturnalia with his soldiers. He even gave them all the spoils of war that week. The more stoic types would even enjoy Saturnalia, Pliny famously writing that he would retreat to his living room in peace, cum reliqua pars tecti licentiatierum festisque clamoribus personat, when all the rest of the house resounds with the holiday spirit and shouts of the partiers. And both Aulus Gellius and Macrobius recount very civil convivia where wealthy Roman philosophers would sit and engage in stimulating conversation. Knowledge is the real drug. So that's the Saturnalia in a nutshell. A lot of drinking, some gambling, and temporary liberty for slaves. It had something for everyone, and even though it's probable that the level of festivities varied from place to place, household to household, it was a ceremony that was practiced consistently for over 1,000 years or more, which when you think about it is remarkable. And its legacy hasn't completely dried up either. Our holiday season in December takes a lot from Saturnalia, and even if you disagree that it secured the timing given to the birth of Christ, there are still many other similarities such as the feasting and gift-giving. Wrapping up, I hope everyone has a lovely holiday season, whatever it is you're celebrating, and when you think back to Rome, know they're partying just like you.